This story begins where many others generally end. At the time, I worked for a detective agency known as HPD, but I couldn't know then what the acronym really meant. I don't think I ever really knew. For a few months, I'd been on the trail of the man the press not very originally renamed Blowtorch. A clue led me to the extreme outskirts of Miami, in a little out-of-the-way suburb that smelled like rotten fish.
Operator, the caller you have dialed is unavailable. Do you want to leave a message?
Bundy, knock it off. Judging from the traffic noise, I'd say you disobeyed my orders.
Hey, I just went out for a ride on my bike. What's the harm?
At 10 in the evening, I told you to stay home. The case is ours. We're already racing to the scene of the tip-off.
But the cavalry's already here, boss. Let me find one of those clues that Blowtorch left for me, and we will stop the next murder before you even divorce your third wife.
I'm on my fourth, Bundy, and I will never understand why that killer keeps leaving clues just for you.
Do you need to ask? Because I'm his archenemy, his nemesis, his worst nightmare.
More like he enjoys leaving you every time grasping a handful of air.
Oh yeah. Remind me again, old man. Who stopped the Puerto Rican surgeon and the arsonist of the southeast coast? And what about the...
All old news, Bundy. You haven't caught a break for a long time. And for months you've been following Blowtorch without any results. Why don't you go on holiday and let us do the work?
I'm in Miami, dude. Working here is a holiday.
I'm serious, Lars. Give it up.
Listen, boss. I will limit myself to a stealth approach. Identify the victim's flat. I write everything down. I smoke a cigarette. I admire the skyline. I wait for reinforcements. No shootout planned.
That would be difficult, since you never carry a gun with you.
Well, once a chick told me that the weapon at my side makes me clumsy.
Don't cause any shit, Bundy. We'll be there in a short while.
Okay. That means I have a short while to solve this case.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Bundy, don't screw things up, or I swear...
At previous crime scenes, we always found a letter addressed to me, abandoned in the mailboxes. This time, maybe, I would be able to find that letter before the crime was committed. But I had to hurry. A horrible antique coin eater. Maybe there was still something useful in Green Dart's flask. Normally I would have filled it with scotch, but I didn't want to find myself in Orlando investigating the red whale again. Like last time. Hey, there really was some scotch after all. Scotch tape, I mean. I looked at the various mailboxes and found what I was looking for. An abandoned envelope with no writing or stamps. The only problem remaining was how to open the mailbox. Maybe using something thin for leverage. My badge wasn't exactly the right tool to wedge this open with, but it was worth a try. The only thing I accomplished was jamming the badge into the narrow crack above the mailbox. The badge was so jammed. Now the mailbox was marked by my badge. It wouldn't help me in any way. I couldn't buzz the whole... Someone left a stupid smiley on the intercom. I could use it to establish the alleged I love making prank calls, but... The door was one of those you could only open through an electric impulse. I wouldn't be able to force it open. As much as I... The only way in seemed to be the emergency ladder. The alley led around the building to the right. Before examining the air... That stuff tasted like chewing gum stuck under a desk for a month. I know that because at school I never had the money for snacks, so I picked up those. Here's what the taxpayers' money was being used for. The conditions of that sidewalk were getting worse. A stone bigger than the others just fell off the sidewalk. And who was I not to accept the kind gifts from Providence? The way it was stuck, the badge would act as a chisel. As usual, the letter was ripped and written with invisible ink. With Scotch tape, I would be able to easily reassemble it. Well, I'd have to think about the invisible ink later. I would have stuck the Scotch tape in the back of the letter, so as to obtain the best readability. I always hated puzzles. If I have to waste time on this... I hate this stuff. Once I received a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle as a present. I sold it to my nephew. It wasn't as difficult as I feared. At that point, I just had to find a way to read the message hidden in the letter. Well, I remembered that to reveal invisible ink, you just have to warm it. Where could I find a source of heat that late at night? In order to reveal the hidden message, it had to be warmed up. That stuff tasted like chewing gum stuck under a desk for a month. I know that because at school I never had the money for snacks, so I picked up those. The vending machine's engine emitted a faint heat. maybe intense enough to show the hidden writing on the letter. At first, nothing happened. I was about to give up when it happened. The first characters appeared. The letter corresponded in every way with the ones found before. Supportive tone, an apparent desire to support the police force, then laced with a sudden temper tantrum hinting at a killing frenzy.
I had to dig into this, looking for clues.
Blowtorch's tone ranged from disappointment to encouragement, with a barely concealed desire for recognition. The forensic guys had no doubt about the gender of the killer just after the first murder. The reason for their certainty wasn't the accuracy of the burns, so much as the various bruises found on the bodies, which displayed extraordinary force. The usual outburst in the middle of a letter that until then seemed thoughtful and balanced. Then I saw the emoticon at the end of the paragraph. That was new. That face. In his early... I took a mental note. That smile, I guess Blowtorch tried to be funny at times, the only result being to appear even creepier. The last paragraph was surely hiding a clue. The murderer was even directing us to a specific profession. The initials in the last paragraph were found in the previous letter, but they were too vague a clue to narrow down the scope of the investigation. The usual closing format. Blowtorch. I don't know why, but that... The apartment was registered to a certain G. Glover. I hoped I got there in time.
Yes? Who is it?
I'm Detective Bundy from HPD. If you don't mind, I need to ask you some questions. He didn't answer immediately. Moments of total silence passed, during which I thought he had hung up.
Sorry for the hesitation, but I really don't understand what you would want from me. I'm just a normal citizen who...
Yes, of course, but I really need, and I mean really need, to talk to you. With a certain urgency, too. Can you open the front door?
I hate to be a killjoy, but you have a warrant. I don't want to get into trouble with my landlord.
You know what? I guess I forgot it in my other hand. Anyway, I already told you that...
Listen, the landlord is a real pain in the ass, and I don't want any trouble.
If it's such a big deal, you won't have any problem coming back with a warrant. Good night. In my entire career, I had never been mistreated like that by someone I had to protect. Despite the fact that the guy was an idiot, I couldn't let him be killed in cold blood. Besides the front door, the only visible way in seemed to be the fire escape above. That ladder would have been the perfect way in, but it was too far. That ladder would make a perfect way in, but how could I reach it? The stone was ideal for hitting the ladder's security lock. The problem was that I couldn't see it from my position. The stone was ideal for hitting the ladder's security lock. Maybe in that alley, I would find alternative access to the building. It didn't seem so high from the street. In that moment, I thought of the hundreds of baseball games I'd seen while living in America, and I had a real moment of epiphany. The greatest champions in history were looking at me from the sky, cheering for me and waving their arms. Ladies and gentlemen, Introducing the newest member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, Lazarus Stonearm Bundy! Give it up for the only, the incomparable, Lazarus Bundy!
Lazarus Bundy in my place. Who'd have thought it?
Here's my man. All 7'5" of a man, to be exact. Well, so much the better. If things got out of hand, he could protect me.
Lazarus Bundy, what are you doing? I still had some surprises in store for you. Instead, it's already time to put an end to our game.
Just then, I knew I misunderstood the whole situation.
Not a word.
Things went down dramatically. I had no gun, as always, and I had to deal with a mastodon ready to kill his next victim. Burton would surely arrive with backup shortly after. But, how shortly? Moreover, we were convinced we had to protect the man who instead just revealed himself to be the monster we were hunting. I thought of sending a text to warn him, but I had no credit on my phone, having accidentally subscribed to a live weather service. I was in more danger than ever, but at least I knew the weather was fine in Baltimore. One thing was for sure, I couldn't wait anymore.
Could be.
With bare hands, I would barely be able to tickle him.
Yes.
The leftovers were inviting. I thought it was better to look for an...
Same place.
That beast towered over. I had to hold my... Never mind.
Impossible. I told you to close that sewer hole, you slut! If I hear even one more... Same place. Could be.
Trying to use the lamp as a makeshift weapon would have meant walking the entire length of the room twice. If I wanted to die, I could have found him. He left the storage room open. I just have gone from the front.
No, Cabron.
Trying to use the lamp as a... If I wanted to die. Trying to use the lamp as a make... If I wanted to die. Change the channel, right now.
Yes.
Freeing the girl was going to... With bare hands, I would barely be able to...
Could be. Yes.
Breaking his TV would have been exit. Breaking his TV... Trying to use the lamp as a makeshift weapon would have meant walking the entire length. If I wanted to die, I could have found a more glorious method. I started to come up with something, but I couldn't completely...
Could be.
I just have gone from the frying pan...
No, Cabron.
Freeing the girl was going to be way more...
Impossible.
With bare hands, I would barely be able...